Okay, we are now. Do you need to say anything, Betsy, to get us started or?
I don't. If the chair could go ahead and open the meeting.
All right.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Mister here. This is our periodic meeting of the Fair Election Fund Commission on this Monday, December 8th. And if everybody's ready to go, I think if I'm according to the agenda, we're going to do an update on participation to date. Unless there's something preliminarily we need to do.
No. I'm happy to provide that. So this is Shane Spencer with the Budget Office, and I'm working closely with our finance staff as well to communicate with the State Board of Elections and use their software called MD Chris to keep track of how many folks have registered a public finance campaign, essentially, as opposed to registering as a candidate that's not in the public finance program. So to date, we are aware of 7 people that have registered a public finance campaign specifically. The other update that I can provide is that candidates are required to attain a certain number of donations in a certain amount to be able to qualify for public funding. Folks are working on collecting enough donations to meet that threshold, but to date, we don't have anybody who has met those thresholds yet. So we have not dispersed any funding to candidates yet, but we will provide updates going forward. And anecdotally, this isn't that surprising, as the final deadline for candidates to register to participate in this election is near the end of February. So I expect that we'll see more activity closer to then. But happy to answer any questions about that update.
Anyone have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Okay, if not, I guess we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the official fiscal year 2027 budget recommendation. Everybody get a chance to see the attachment notes that was circulated with regard to that.
And I'm bringing that up. I'm also happy, Mr. Chair, if folks would like me to go through this, I'm happy to do that.
Sure, why don't we do
as
that?
well? Sure. So commissioners, just as a refresher, we will take a vote on a budget recommendation for fiscal year 2027, which is the fiscal year that the 2026 election for general election for council and county executive will happen. And commissioners will vote on a formal recommendation for what the county executive should include in her budget. That said, since this is the first time the county is doing this, it is very difficult to make an informed recommendation. So I have done my best here to provide an update on the funding as it stands today, and some considerations the commission could take into account when voting on a budget for 27. So the first thing in general I wanted to provide an update on is overall right now the fund already has almost $2.7 million in it. That's the sum of the FY 2025 budget of $1 million and the FY 2026 budget of $1.65 million, plus actually some interest income in the account and a small amount of expenditures that were needed to advertise the regulations that you all voted on. So again, there's almost $2.7 million in the fund. Generally in the budget office, looking at what could happen in 27 is if the commission were to recommend another 1.65 million, which is, like I said, from the budget office's perspective, that's flat from FY 26. That's just repeating what you did last year. The fund balance would increase to 4.35 million. That's this number down here. Any questions so far about that?
I guess the only question I would have, and whether it's premature, is whether, is there any reason for us to inflate the, as opposed to keep the status quo as far as the recommended budget for next year?
I would have to ask the commission for you to bring those reasons to me. As it is, the budget office has a placeholder of 1.65 million. So I'd have to ask the commission for discussion on increasing that.
I'm not sure there's any reason. I was just curious if there is, everything else seems to inflate, but at this point in time, with only one person declaring themselves to seek the funding, I don't know how many more are going to flood us in between now and February. So I suspect we're going to have money left over.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I do have some more background info to provide on basically how, in terms of making an estimate for the budget office, my estimate that supports leaving things flat at 1.65 million and increasing funding to just over 4.3 million in total is basically two major considerations there. One is that if there is any funding left over after these elections, we don't have to worry about that going to waste because it'll just stay in the Fair Election Fund almost as like a down payment on the 2030 elections. So there's no downside to not needing all of those 4.3 million. In terms of not necessarily increasing from 1.65 million, we do know, since we don't have data here to work on, we do know from a really great audit report that the Office of the Legislative Auditor in Montgomery County released that they had two elections so far where they've done this, and they distributed an average of 4.5 million on average. They had 5.5 on average vacancies in those two races. By vacancies, I mean seats without an incumbent. So that would be, for example, Pat Young. We know that his seat will be vacant this year because he's expected to run for county executive. He said that, and that's been in the media. So we do expect to have 6 vacancies. So that's similar to Montgomery County, at least. I have us coming in at that lower 4.35-ish number because Montgomery County just has way more people than we do. It has 27% higher population. So there's more people that can donate. And they also have a significantly higher median household income. So that's just me making, an educated guess that they also may have an easier time gathering donations in that county. So that's kind of my background data, but I'm happy to open it up to discussion by the commission and see if you're comfortable with coming in at 1.65 million for now, if you have more questions for me, if you want to go in a different direction.
I'm certainly comfortable with that, keeping status quo, particularly we don't have to do anything to change that other than vote on it. And like I said, at this point in time, we don't know how many other people are going to elect to seek the funding. Although there certainly are a lot of council seats going to be open.
There are,
No
yes.
question about that. 2 of them, of course, being the 2 new created ones.
Has there been a finalization? I kind of go in and out with the redistricting. Has those districts been finalized yet? Because last time I heard, I think they're still fighting over them. Not fighting, but trying to organize it, I guess. It's a good way of saying that.
I believe they have finalized it.
I think they did, although
Yeah.
the question is whether anybody's going to file suit, I guess.
Sure.
Good point. No, there's too many. Yeah, right now feels like there's still, because this is our first time around. I think just going with status quo, and we can always change it. Going forward, because we're basing on the information that we have. It's kind of hard to make a decision on things on information we don't, and we won't know until we go through it. That makes sense.
This is
That's what I-
Bernice Tucker. I'm good with the 1.65, but I'm wondering, it, how can you come with the 4.3 balance if you don't know how many people will be utilizing the fund?
Um,
It's not cast in stone, this 4.3.
I want to make sure I understand your question. 4.3 would just be the sum of what we've put into the fund so far, and no one has drawn on it yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that, but you're still going through the different years, 25, 26, 27, and then even up to 30. I just don't understand. Is the fund replenishing itself to always annually put in 1.65?
It depends on what the commission recommends each fiscal year. So the way that you get to the 4.3 is there was an FY25 budget of 1 million and then an FY26 budget of 1.65 million. And then if there's an FY27 budget of 1.65 million, all of those summed together equals 4.3 million. The reason I have a slightly higher number is that the account also earns interest. It has already earned interest. So that's why it's a little higher than 4.3 million. But the money that has been recommended for the budget and put into the account, like in FY25, it stays there. It's a revolving account, so it has not left the account. It just keeps building up a balance. So it's like, yeah.
I understand, and I don't have any concern about the way this is written. It's not. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone.
Sure.
It's nice
Mhm.
that it's earning interest. Do we have any idea what we're averaging as far as a per annum?
I'd have to look that up and get back to you. We used a standard, we used the same interest rate that the county is earning on its general fund balance. So it was a standard rate, but yeah, for over 40,000, almost $50,000 in 1 year was nice to see come in.
Absolutely. Don't get that much with government.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions with regard to the budget issue?
None here.
Are we going to vote on these as we go along, or do you want to go through the other topics?
We could vote on this for now. I guess before we go on to before we do the vote, for posterity and public information's sake, if one of you would ask me the question, well, what can be done if lots of people to participate in this and it doesn't look like there's going to be enough money in the fund balance? There's two ways of moving forward. One, there could be some kind of recommendation made for the county executive to propose supplemental funding. But in the event that that doesn't move forward, the director of budget and finance would then be tasked with proportionally reducing everybody's matching funds so that everybody is treated fairly in the same way until the fund is spent down. So I just wanted to put that out there.
There's no right to a minimum amount.
Yeah, so it's just everybody's treated the same way. It's not like so it becomes proportional for every candidate that's still qualifying for matching funds. But yeah, happy to move it to a vote.
I suspect that probably most of the candidates for this are going to be council people who may be neophytes as far as running for office. Because I think the incumbent politicians that are running for county executive have a well-worn network of fundraising, and I think they would probably go with that rather than the public funding, is my guess.
I'm not, and I'm not sure, it's the Montgomery County Legislative Auditor's report is really interesting because there are some incumbents that have used the funding, a lot of success by non-incumbents. It'll be really interesting to see what happens here. So I'm as excited as anybody else, so.
I'll be interested who's going to run. That being said, I make a motion that we adopt the recommendation for the 2027 fiscal budget of the 1.65 million. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
nays? Any nays? It's unanimous.
Right.
So
Do we-
seeing that all those are yes, then this motion passes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's what you're here for. right?
You're fine. Thank you.
Parliamentary procedure is not necessarily my strongest point.
I have Robert's Rules of Order on my desk.
All right.
Half the administrative agencies I practice before don't come close to following them. All right, the next agenda item is the new Maryland CRIS software.
Yes. So I wanted to provide an update on, as folks know, that the fundamental way that a candidate for our council or county executive that's participating in this program, the way they get matching funds from the county is they submit campaign finance reports to the state of Maryland on a regular schedule. And when they're submitting those campaign finance reports, they have to upload a receipt for each donation. So that's the big picture. They submit that report, and using a software called MD Chris, Maryland Campaign Reporting Information System, I believe. The state then uses that information and calculates how much we as the county owe that candidate. And we also verify that we agree with that. So that involves looking at where donors live and verifying that they are county residents, for example. But anyway, the state is moving from this very outdated version of MD Chris, the software, to a brand new version. And in fact, that transitioning is happening this week. So they have been, I did email all of the commission members. The state has been offering public every week or so information sessions that are also recorded and posted online to candidates on how to use that new software. And that training will continue through January and again be available online. So we're excited that this software is less clunky than it has been in the past, but it's just something to be aware of that candidates are going through, is that they're having to learn a new software. Any questions from the commission for me about that?
Yeah, I'm like, is there any way to? I'm kind of curious about it and how functional it is. I don't know, my role or anything about that. To kind of see what does that process. I guess we're kind of out of that. What that process really looks like. I don't know how to phrase this question, but like, is there a way to kind of see how that works? And
Sure, like the new software.
yeah.
We can make sure that I will recirculate the email that I shared about the training for the system, so that you can kind of follow along what the candidates are learning. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that'd be helpful because I know, I know that if they have some questions, maybe I don't think I'd be the one that they would be asking, but I can maybe help point them in the right direction, or if that is out of my preview.
Oh, no, absolutely. And not out of your purview. I will send you the kind of the landing page that the State Board of Elections uses to provide information about this system. The one thing actually that would be great for you to remember as a commission member that's also new information for me is, because I just went to one of these trainings, and what I learned about the new MD Chris is that to protect the security of the system and just make sure that everybody's information is secure. Obviously, it's very sensitive information that can be on campaign finance reports, things like that. Some of the training will be, and guides will be accessible sort of through MD Chris. So if I'm a candidate, I may go to the Maryland State Board of Elections website, find out, how do I register for MD Chris? How do I log in? And once I'm there, where do I go to look for the training? That would be like the public facing information. But then I would have to follow that information, get into my MD Chris, and then look for additional training materials. Does that make sense on how to actually use MD Chris?
Yeah, there's a
mhm.
couple process.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a flow.
Exactly. It's some of the more detailed information may end up a little bit more behind a gate to protect information. So, yeah.
And we've been advised by SBE that they are making videos that will walk candidates and their campaigns through step by step of filing. Those videos, and the new MD Chris, I don't believe has dropped yet, so those videos have not been made public yet. So once those are out, if they are public facing videos, we'll share them.
Okay.
So
Fantastic.
I have a question along that same line. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you. Could you say that one more time, your question?
Yeah, so I said I have a question along that line. Do you think it would be advantageous for us as commissioners to know that system in case someone asks us about it?
It can't hurt, given the new approach where some of their training materials might actually be accessible only to people that are logging into MD Chris. What I'd like to do to respond to your question is follow up with the state board and get some clarity on how much of this training you really can take under their new guidelines. So let me reach out to them and get some clarity on how much you can really learn without having a login to MD Chris. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense to me.
We have a
Alright.
meeting scheduled with them, correct?
Yeah, we do. I'm just taking a note to make sure I follow up for a moment.
I'm just thinking that if they're new people who are new candidates to the whole process, there might be some that ask questions and ask us questions.
Absolutely. And at a minimum, I will make sure that you have that link that you can give to anyone that at least they're going to provide information there about how to register, how to log in, and where to look for information. So at least you can get them started down the right path. And Kevin, who works for the state, who's responsible for this transition, he is also very available on a personal basis. So I can also share his information so you can really connect them with a person who can talk to them, one-on-one. He's been great. So, okay. I think that's it for me on that item.
If there's no other questions about the new MD Chris software, we can go on to the next agenda item, which is updates to materials.
All right, so this is actually very similar topic. As you all have gotten used to by now, we have these regular updates that we've made to the summary guide for candidates. Given that our summary guide has included in the past information about how to use MD Chris, we want to make sure that we keep it up to date. And given like what I've learned from the state that they want to keep some of this training information within MD Chris, my recommendation, I think what I'm going to need to do and bring to the commission is I'm going to update the summary guide so that instead of the county always having to catch up with the state and teach folks how to use MD Chris, we're no longer going to be trying to own that information with with the state. Our summary guide can be updated just to explain MD Chris is the state software. They're the experts and the central place to go for training on that. You will need to use it, for example, to upload receipts. And this is where you can go to find that information. Here's the state website. Here's how to log in. Here's where to look for training. And that will ultimately simplify our summary guide and ensure that we're never out of date with the state, because we'll always be referring people to the state and they'll always be responsible for keeping their training up to date. What that does mean is that I will be bringing an updated summary guide to you all for your consideration and a vote. Does that make any questions on that?
Sounds good.
Okay. And it'll be a lot shorter, so it'll be less to look at next time you are voting on it, if that's a benefit. Anyway, and that's that on that item. I am, when we get to the next agenda item, I'm going to be proposing an additional meeting to vote on that, but I will hold my horses and let the chair kick us off for that. So,
If there are no other questions about updates, then we'll move on to the next and last, I believe, agenda item, which is the calendar year 2026 meeting schedule.
yep.
Okay.
So as some may remember, for 2025, we really scheduled almost every meeting basically a year in advance. But because 2026 is actually the calendar year when these elections will be happening, my suggestion was that we schedule a few meetings now and then just stay a little bit more flexible for as we get into the summer and for the second half of the year in case you find yourselves wanting to meet more often. Does that sound good?
I think makes sense. And I assume we'll continue to do it on a Monday afternoon.
Yes. Uh-huh. So my initial suggestion, in terms of being able to adopt a summary guide and wanting to do that in a timely fashion, I was going to suggest Monday, February 9th for that. Let me check that I have my date right from that. Yeah, Monday, February 9th. And I guess let me read out 3 of these in a row and then we can go one by one and folks can provide feedback. Monday, February 9th, essentially for a special meeting to adopt a new summary guide. Monday, March 9th, as just kind of a regular quarterly-ish meeting schedule. And then Monday, June 8th, as again, another quarterly meeting type schedule. So I guess
Yeah,
I'll.
hey, this
Sure, go
those
ahead.
all work for me.
Okay,
Oh, it'll work for me too.
okay,
It's good for
right.
me.
Somebody like to make a motion to adopt at least those 3 meeting dates?
I second.
Well, let's have the motion first. I'll make the motion. We're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
move that we adopt the 3 meeting
I
dates
thought
of
that's what you were doing.
February 9, March 9, and June 8. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion's adopted.
Well, let's make sure no one's opposed.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear any opposite. Is there any nays? No. So that was unanimous 4, and the motion therefore is adopted.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. Unless there's any more, any other matter to bring before the commission at this session, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
When do you need a second?
I second it.
Oh, you're right. Okay, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays? Any nays? Motion's adopted to adjourn this session.
Well, thank you all, and please stay tuned for an email follow-up from me within 1 to 2 days about those MD Chris questions and information.
All right. Happy holidays. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Jane.
Aye. Thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. Bye.